Hello everybody, Tyrone the God 3 here, and welcome to the first installment of this segment, which I promised you all a while ago I would do after I was done reviewing all of the Dragon Ball Z movies and specials. I did all of that. I even powered through both live action movies, and I even did the review on Dragon Ball GT. So what left is there to do now? Well, it's the sagas of Dragon Ball Z. Well, a lot of people would honestly want to know where, all the hype is from Dragon Ball Z. You watch the movies, you watch the specials and stuff, you hear about people talking about Dragon Ball Z on the streets and things like that. But where did it all originate from? Well, obviously, the anime can't be anything without the actual anime series itself. So it's time for us to go ahead and take a look at the sagas, the reason why Dragon Ball Z has lasted as long as it did, and the main focal points within the series and meta of Dragon Ball Z's franchise. So here's the deal, when I do these reviews, all of these reviews will be about 30 minutes long for each saga, about one episode of Dragon Ball Z. So it'll take about 30 minutes for me to discuss some key plot points, and I won't go over them detail like I do with my Pokemon X and Y anime reviews, because I review those episode per episode. But I will be reviewing some of the major plot points in each saga, what happens between the sagas, characters that were introduced in the sagas, and things like that. So here's the overall formatting between the saga reviews in which I decided to go on. When I do the saga reviews, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the several elements. The first will obviously be the timeline placement, which, since this is a saga review, I'll go ahead and just state that this saga happens after this saga or before these sagas, or since in this case it would be the first saga of Dragon Ball Z where everything begins. If there's any particular plot points or movies or things that happen in between or in the middle or before this that have any relevance to the saga that's happening at the time, then I will state them. So, with that all being said, I will go ahead and state for the Saiyan Saga that the timeline placement is literally, at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. However, for those of you all who were ever interested in the Dragon Ball series, the original Dragon Ball series, I'll probably try to make a video of that some, months from now or some weeks from now, because I will talk about the original Dragon Ball series at some point, but this is where most people will remember where Dragon Ball Z begins its origin, because not a lot of people watch Dragon Ball, to be perfectly honest. But this is basically where it all begins. However, to be more specific, I would recommend that you watch Bardock, the father of Goku, before going into this, so that you can learn a little bit more about how Dragon Ball Z had its official real beginning. But overall, the Dragon Ball series is the start that happens before the Dragon Ball Z series, and is what introduces a lot of the characters that we meet in the Saiyan Saga, with the exception of the three major characters that are villains in this saga. But a lot of the other characters gain their origin stories from the original Dragon Ball, and their characters are lightly touched on and developed as this series goes out, with one character in particular gaining his appearance in this series and as a primary character throughout the series. So with that all being said, let's get into this. The first saga of Dragon Ball Z is dubbed the Saiyan Saga. The Saiyan Saga because it revolves around the Saiyans that existed on planet Vegeta before Frieza had destroyed planet Vegeta. This is the prologue to the Frieza Saga, and in many cases outside of the US, the Frieza Saga and the Saiyan Saga are actually chosen to be one full saga. This is mostly because the Saiyan Saga is one of the shorter sagas in the entire Dragon Ball Z timeline. And it's usually because most of the things that happen within the Saiyan Saga trigger the events of the Frieza Saga that happened later on planet Namek. But within this saga, we get introduced to several different characters, one major character being Gohan. Gohan is the second main character of the Dragon Ball Z series, followed by Goku, and we follow Gohan throughout the journey of the entire Dragon Ball Z series, but Goku's the leader of the Z Warriors and basically guides most of the story due to his success in beating most of the villains in the series. It's ironic though that Goku really never beat any of the main villains in the series, but we'll talk about that some other day. Anyway, once you stop to think about this, this is basically how the series starts. The saga basically starts with Raditz landing on planet Earth in search for Goku, aka his Saiyan name Kakarot. That's right. What Akira Toriyama decided to do for the Saiyan Saga was introduce the fact that Goku is from another planet, and that's basically what's revealed with the reveal of Raditz as Goku's older brother, coming from the planet Vegeta after it shortly got destroyed by Frieza a while ago, after Frieza blew it up during the results of the Bardock Father of Goku saga or series special. Once all of this goes down, Goku's revealed that he is a part of these Saiyans. Goku at first refuses this origin and actually goes off to fight against Raditz because Raditz is responsible for kidnapping Gohan. Since Raditz winds up kidnapping Gohan, Piccolo views Raditz as a threat because Piccolo wants his chance to defeat Goku and he doesn't want Raditz to go ahead and defeat him. He also views Raditz as an overall threat as well, so Goku and Piccolo have to team up, and this gives birth to what we now dub the Z Warriors. The Z Warriors are basically the gathering of all of the strongest heroes on planet Earth in order to defend the world and search for the Dragon Balls. This is where they basically get their origin, with Piccolo and Goku teaming up. Piccolo being a former villain from the Dragon Ball series. You can also look a bit more into this with the movie Dead Zone, but like I said, Dead Zone isn't absolutely necessary for you to get the plot of what's going on right now. After Goku and Piccolo team up, the ending fight results in Goku end up getting killed along with Raditz because Goku sacrificed himself in order to save the planet Earth from Raditz, with Piccolo killing both of them via the Special Beam Cannon. You can note already how Goku wasn't the one responsible for killing Raditz, Piccolo was. And Goku and Raditz both died, Shortly afterwards, the rest of the Z Warriors appear before Goku as he's dying, and all agree that they'll wish him back exactly 1 year from now in order to bring him back so that he can be strong enough to fight off against the next two Saiyans that are supposed to come to Earth that Raditz foolishly warned the others about. I guess this was supposed to be a premonition on whether or not the Saiyans were coming in order to destroy the planet, and to show that Raditz has, in his view, feels like he won, even though it's clear that he got his butt kicked. But because of this, Vegeta and Nappa hear over the situation of the Dragon Balls and their power to be able to bring someone back to life. Vegeta and Nappa view this as an opportunity to head down to Earth and search for the Dragon Balls themselves. But it'll take exactly 1 year for them to arrive. So what do the rest of the Z Warriors do? They train for the upcoming battle. With this said, several characters from the older Dragon Ball series like Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, and Chaozu, and even Yajirobe for that matter, all head up to Kami's lookout and receive the exact same training that Goku received during the Dragon Ball Saga so that they can get considerably stronger for the upcoming Saiyan Saga attack. Meanwhile, Piccolo goes ahead and kidnaps Gohan and forces him to train due to Piccolo seeing that Gohan has a hidden potential power that he can use in order to defeat the Saiyans, since Piccolo and Goku both witnessed it during their fight against Raditz. The hidden power within Gohan is one of the most revolving themes around this entire Dragon Ball Z series, and later on in one of my Saga reviews, I will reveal how Gohan's hidden power is a long-going motif that brings this series that much closer to being much greater than what most people anticipate. Gohan's hidden power is something to very well take note of, as it is a key factor in the entire Dragon Ball Z franchise. And it all comes full circle in one particular saga I will be reviewing later on. Anyway, after all of the others train, Goku is running on Snake Way in order to meet up with one of the strongest warriors in the Northern Quadrant galaxy, known as King Kai. King Kai is able to train Goku under intense gravity and all in order to teach him the martial art of Kaioken. This will allow Goku to become a lot stronger and fare a much better fight against the Saiyans once he gets revived by the Dragon Balls and lands right back on planet Earth. It's also fun to note that around this point that Goku learns of his origin as a Saiyan and again tries to reject it, but he then later on embraces it when King Kai tells him that he is a Saiyan, but he can make a difference here. King Kai is rather impressed by Goku's ability to learn very fast and pick up on things, and that he's able to be a lot stronger and pass most of King Kai's tests at a much faster rate than a lot of King Kai's former students. It's with this point that the Saiyans actually wind up coming to planet Earth a little bit earlier than a year, but because of all of this, it causes some form of terror. The Z Warriors finally all group up with the exception of Goku and get ready for the upcoming battle. Once Nappa and Vegeta land on planet Earth, the fight immediately begins, but not with Nappa and Vegeta fighting the Saiyans themselves. They actually release some form of green plant-like monsters known as the Cybermen to fight off against our Z Warriors. And for a while the Z Warriors were doing a good job until Yamcha had let his guard down and one of the Cybermen was able to use his self-destruct attack in order to kill Yamcha off. Boiled with rage, Krillin went in and destroyed 3 other Cybermen, and Piccolo destroyed a few others, which led to no more Cybermen, which means that Nappa could fully afford to go in and fight. It is considerably noted that Nappa is the second strongest, with Vegeta being the strongest at this point, regardless of the size. Nappa goes into fight, and it's clear that even with all of our Saiyan, even with all of the training that the Z Warriors have done, the Saiyans are completely outclassed the Z Warriors, with the exception of Goku, obviously. And it's at this point that Nappa wastes no time ripping the Z Warriors' numbers down quickly. They do put up a good fight against Nappa and even result in blowing off all of his Saiyan armor, but at this point, it's clear that they're outmatched. Chaozu winds up using a self-destruct in order to get rid of Nappa, but it doesn't work. Then Tien winds up using the Kikoho attack, and it does nothing more but give him like somewhat wounds, but not enough to really bring Nappa down. At this point, Nappa was a total powerhouse, ripping through most of them, and the Z Warriors numbers were dwindling. Vegeta decides that they need to keep Piccolo alive during this fight so that they can reveal all the information he knows about the Dragon Balls, until later Vegeta finds out that since there's a whole race of Namekians, all they have to do is retreat to planet Namek and get the information from them, and making Piccolo completely obsolete now, which means Piccolo can be killed. At this point, Gohan, Krillin, and Piccolo are the only ones left to fight off against Nappa, and Nappa winds up attacking Gohan, and Piccolo sacrifices himself so that Gohan doesn't get killed. It's at this point that the numbers are down to only Gohan and Krillin, with Gohan about to get killed by Nappa. Thankfully, Goku arrives just in time in order to save Gohan and turn the tables of this fight. It's clear that Goku completely outmatches Nappa at this point, and with his knowledge of the Kaioken technique, which doubles his power, he's able to become that much more stronger and defeat Nappa to the point where Nappa is unable to battle. However, since Vegeta doesn't accept Saiyans that can't fight in battle anymore, he was useless to Vegeta, and Vegeta winds up killing Nappa. This ends in a result of only one fighter left, which is Vegeta, and Goku decides to take Vegeta alone so that Gohan and Krillin don't get killed. With this said, Vegeta and Goku wind up fighting off against the Wasteland, which easily leads to the most iconic fight in the entire Saiyan Saga series. At this point, Goku learns of his origins as a Saiyan even more, and he learns that the planet that they came from was destroyed and all things like that. In this fight, it's clear that Vegeta actually has the upper hand on Goku until Goku pushes beyond his limits and transforms into Kaioken multiplied times 3. With this power, Goku's able to turn the tables of the battle, but then Vegeta winds up using his Gallic Ho, or Gallic Gun, attack as a last-minute resort. At this point, Goku winds up using the Kamehameha to counter, and then pushes his limits even further by multiplying his Kaioken times 4. At this point, Vegeta is beaten, however, Vegeta isn't out for the count. Vegeta returns, and at this point transforms into a Great Ape. Once he turns into a Great Ape, he fights off against Goku, and Goku learns the full origins of the Saiyans, why they have tails, and why they react to the full moon the way they do. He's able to put 2 and 2 together and realizes that way back before the Dragon Ball series even began, he was the one that wound up killing his grandpa Gohan, well, adopted grandpa Gohan, by accidentally stomping on him while he was a Great Ape. But there's no time to really grieve over that. Goku's getting attacked by a giant monkey. At this point, Gohan and Krillin come back to try to help Goku, and they manage to come back just in time because Goku was about to get crushed to death. Their efforts to try to cut Vegeta's tail off were basically fruitless until Yajirobe came out of nowhere and was able to sneak from behind. At this point, since Vegeta had lost his Grade 8 transformation, this led way for Gohan and Krillin to move in for the attack, but they were still outmatched by how much power Vegeta had. Thankfully, Goku still had some energy left over from the Spirit Bomb and was able to give it to Krillin. Krillin ends up using the Spirit Bomb but misses. Gohan bounces it back. Vegeta ends up getting hit. And then just when we thought that it was all over, Vegeta still has a little bit of power, just enough in order to fight off against the Z Warriors. However, Gohan at this point, his tail has grown back. Since his tail has grown back, he looks up into the moon, transforms into the Great Ape, and then fights off against Vegeta. But Vegeta cuts off Gohan's tail. Everything's back to normal. Gohan winds up landing on Vegeta, which knocks Vegeta basically near death. Krillin has the opportunity to kill Vegeta, but Goku tells Krillin not to kill Vegeta and let him go because Goku wants to fight Vegeta again one day because of how good of a match he was. Kind of similar to how he did with Piccolo. So, with that all being said, Vegeta was able to retreat to his space pod and head off to planet Namek, and then the others get informed that they can use the Dragon Balls from planet Namek since Piccolo's dead and they can't use the Dragon Balls from planet Earth because when Piccolo dies, Kami dies as well. So with that all being said, they decide to go ahead and travel to planet Namek so that they can use the Dragon Balls from there to wish back Yamcha, Tien, and Chaozu, as well as Piccolo, all the victims who died from the Saiyan Saga attack. And that's basically the conclusion leading up to the following saga, which is the Frieza Saga. So there you go. In this saga, we get introduced to several characters that you all probably would know from the former Dragon Ball series, but then we get introduced to new characters such as Raditz, Nappa, Vegeta, the Cybermen, Gohan, etc., etc. One of the things to note about the Saiyan Saga within itself, the Saiyan Saga has two iterations, obviously, the original Dragon Ball Z Saga as well as the Dragon Ball Kai. Now, if you were to ask me which one I would prefer the most, obviously if we were to look for which one was faster, we'd go for the Dragon Ball Kai Saga. In the English dub, they actually did some lines a lot better, and Vegeta even corrects his over 9,000 line, which is very popular within the franchise of Dragon Ball Z, but instead it gets transferred to over 8,000 because it's more representative of what was said in the manga. The thing about this saga that I do like is the fact that this is the one time we see a lot of the Z Warriors get together and fight for a common cause, minus Goku, until Goku comes later and changes the whole tables. We got to see like Yamcha and Tien actually do some pretty good effort against the upcoming threat of the Saiyans, or at least the Cybermen as far as we're concerned. We got to see how the Z Warriors fight, and we get to be introduced to Earth Special Forces and how former enemies become friends. Because Goku has this influence on a lot of his former villains like Tien, Yamcha, and Piccolo to make them into suddenly good guys where they're fighting with Goku to save the planet. Everybody comes together for a common cause, and that's the overall theme behind Dragon Ball Z, is that a lot of the people that normally would be butting heads or disagreeing with each other have all come together for a common cause in order to stop an incoming threat, whether it be Earth, Namek, or whatever. At this point, you're introduced to a lot of things. Now, if you were to ask me which one I prefer, I'd actually prefer the original Dragon Ball Z series when it comes to the Saiyan Saga, strictly because of the character Gohan. I know what you're thinking, well, what about Gohan? In Dragon Ball Z, the Saiyan Saga, at least as far as we're concerned, Gohan comes off as mostly whiny. He doesn't really end up fighting for real until we see that Piccolo gets killed. That was at the point where Gohan finally decides to suck it up and just fight off against Nappa. Then later on he fights off against Vegeta. At least he tries to fight off against Vegeta. This is where we end up getting down to Gohan's true character. You see, when you really stop to look at it, a lot of people complain that Gohan was very whiny at this stage of his life and how he was almost completely useless in the fight against the Saiyans because he was too hesitant in order to fight off against the Cybermen or Nappa. There was this scene where Gohan actually could have killed Nappa because the Krillin and Piccolo worked together effectively, but Gohan was too scared and wasn't able to do the finishing blow onto Nappa, which ended up in them losing their one shot to killing Nappa. The thing about it is, though, Gohan's freaking 4 years old. You don't expect a 4-year-old to go in and fight this gruesome battle after he just got done witnessing a couple of his friends get killed right before his eyes. It's like putting a 4-year-old in the middle of a war zone. I mean, yeah, this particular 4-year-old can potentially be stronger than everybody else if he digs deep into his power, but you gotta look at it like this. He's still a 4-year-old, guys. So yeah, but here's one thing that I like about the original Dragon Ball Z series as opposed to Dragon Ball Z Kai's version of the Saiyan Saga. The original Dragon Ball Z Saga actually fleshes Gohan's character out a bit more. It gives him more of a reason why he decides to fight. There's even an episode where Gohan manages to make it home, seeing his mother cooking, and he's at his home, and he finally gets to get away from the harsh wilderness, but he decides to go back. Yeah, he decides to go right back to training with Piccolo, and he decides to suck it all up and become a warrior. This was a really good moment, basically, in the series, because to me, it really fleshed out Gohan. Gohan doesn't want to fight. Gohan would rather study and become a scholar. That's Gohan's character. However, this is where we get the motif of Gohan. Gohan is not like Goku. Goku fights for the sport. Goku will literally let a threat come to planet Earth just so that he can get the chance to fight it and defend the Earth. Defending the Earth is something that comes primarily second to Goku because he was raised by Earthlings and has a bond with them. But Gohan, on the other hand, fights to protect. Goku fights for sport. And that's where we get the overall theme around Gohan. At first, Gohan wasn't down for training with Piccolo. He cried basically every chance he got. Piccolo left him in the middle of the wilderness to fend for himself. And for a while, this really brought off a lot of fun traits in Gohan that were introduced. You gotta remember, Gohan's the new character in this series, and a lot of the series revolves around Gohan, along with Goku. So to see a 4-year-old fend for himself in the middle of the wilderness not only shows how a kid's growth through being left alone can make him into a stronger person. I mean, it also adds on to Gohan's character and taught him some very valuable lessons. There's this one episode where Gohan actually sees a robot and gains some development with it. Unfortunately, the robot winds up shutting down midway, and Gohan learns what it means to gain a friendship with something and lose that friendship. There was another episode where Gohan actually gained some character development and was friends with a little dinosaur. However, he was unable to save that dinosaur because it wound up getting eaten by another dinosaur. This is where Gohan learns the true meaning and value to protect someone that he cares about. All of these things were slowly training Gohan to become stronger, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, which led to him overall becoming one of the very primary factors in the Saiyan Saga and was the deciding factor in whether or not the Saiyans were going to get defeated or not. Piccolo basically did a really wise move by letting Gohan, be his train under him. And at this point, you could see that Gohan was truly getting stronger. I mean, look at him at the beginning of the training and look at him at the end. I mean, even though he cries and is hesitant a little during the fight itself, you gotta admit that even him just being on the battlefield is very commendable. He at first is afraid and he's whiny and scared and he cries literally every episode. Then once at the end of the training, he's got this sword, he's running around chasing a dinosaur, cutting off its tail, eating bits of the dinosaur every day, and he's just running super fast and jumping off these plateaus. And yeah, it really shows the evolution of Gohan and how he went from this whiny little toddler to someone who can basically fend for himself if given the chance. Now we also move on to Goku. This is a lot of growth for Goku as well, because at this point Goku learns the origins of himself. He learns that he's a Saiyan, and he learns what the Saiyans are and what they're capable of, and Goku rejects this lifestyle in order to choose to still be an Earthling and protect the ones he loves. Vegeta offers him a chance to be his second in command, and Goku refuses it, well, mainly because of how Vegeta treats Nappa, but he also refuses it because he feels that everything he has is on Earth. So while he is aware of his Saiyan origins, he's ready to go ahead and just embrace the fact that he is an Earthling and a Saiyan raised on Earth at that. So with that all being said, that was the overall motif. Now, reoccurring characters that come from the saga, obviously, are Vegeta as well as Gohan. The others come back, but in a much later saga, and in the Frieza saga they are introduced, but it's very, odd. So, with that all said, let's talk about the villains themselves. Raditz, Nappa, and Vegeta. These are the main villains of the Saiyan Saga. I'm not going to really count the Cybermen, as they are just monsters that were there to give the Z-Warriors something to fight before Goku gets there. The thing about Nappa, there's not really much to say about Nappa other than the fact that he's a big, lug-headed idiot. But there are, due to a certain abridged series making him famous as all hell, Nappa has had his moments. But if we're talking just the Saiyan Saga in general and how Nappa was, we mostly see that Nappa's a very two-dimensional character, the big doofus, where Vegeta is the small but very scary, boss. Vegeta definitely shows himself as a character around here as well, most notably when he destroys his own allies within the Cybermen and Nappa, basically showing how ruthless Vegeta is and how willing he is to kill someone even if they're on his side if they've hindered him in any type of way. One of the most disappointing villains in this entire saga is Raditz, and I hate to be the one to pick on Raditz considering that I use him a lot in video games if I were to choose a villain, but let's say it's just kind of disappointing to show how Raditz is basically Goku's brother, and this has been proven by Akira Toriyama. This wasn't just a line that Raditz was saying so that he could say we're connected. No, this is literally truth. Raditz and Goku are biological brothers sharing the same parent, Bardock. Yet, unfortunately, it's not complimented on. Raditz is only alive for about 3 episodes, 2 if you count Dragon Ball Kai. So, well, 4 episodes, 2 if you count Dragon Ball Kai. So it's kind of disappointing to see a character that's so closely related to Goku get the boot so quickly. It's really disappointing. In fact, other than Vegeta, not a lot of the villains are very fleshed out. Raditz is ruthless, yes, and he even shows that he's not above killing his own brother and his nephew in order to get what he wants. But other than that, there's not really much to say about Raditz. Honestly, I think the series would have been a lot better if they had somehow found a way to make Raditz a reoccurring character as well. It didn't have to necessarily be a good guy like Vegeta will soon be later on in the series, but I think it would have been kind of cool to make Raditz a anti-hero like Vegeta was for a while. Or, to the very least, make Raditz a rogue, fight when he feels like fighting character. It just seems sort of sad that they offed Raditz so quickly and gave him such a more important role. I mean, hell, if they were to switch Raditz and Nappa around, I wouldn't be upset, because Nappa himself was a very two-dimensional character. I'm the big lug-headed idiot that's supposed to be very powerful, but other than that, not much was really going for Nappa. We don't really learn much of Nappa's backstory, and he's not that important when you compare him to the rest of the Saiyans. The other problem is that there's not a lot of Saiyans. I mean, one of the problems in the Saiyan Saga is that this saga is devoted to them, yet there's only 3, and it's not much of a threat. I mean, the Cybermen pose as a threat for the Z-Warriors before Goku gets there as well, but the Cybermen only end up killing one person, and that's Yamcha. And the only reason that happens was because they needed to show off how strong the Cybermen were themselves. Honestly, I don't think Yamcha should have died in that fight. I would have preferred him to die to Nappa like Tien did. But, whatever. However, we do want to get to the pros of this saga, because there are some pros. One of the pros is the Goku versus Vegeta fight. This is easily probably the best fight in the entire series, because Goku and Vegeta are around the same amount of power, not counting Vegeta transforming into the Great Ape, and not counting Goku's help from Krillin and Gohan when Goku needs to wham the Spirit Bomb on Vegeta. I'm talking the fight in the Wasteland area, which is easily the most iconic fight in the entire series. Vegeta shows to be a bit stronger than Goku, but then when Goku cranks it up a bit with Kaioken times 2, not 1, Kaioken times 2, they seem about even, but then Vegeta gets a little stronger, then Goku wraps things up with Kaioken times 3, which is definitely shows that Goku's outclassed Vegeta at this point, but then Vegeta winds up using the Gallic Gun, which causes almost the destruction of the Earth, and then Goku counters with Kaioken ×4 Kamehameha. One of the main problems with this, however, and I'm sorry, I know I said pros, but this is slightly a con too, is that Dragon Ball Z comes off a little too strong. Don't get me wrong, this is my favorite anime series in the world. However, when Vegeta threatens that the Gallic Gun has the capabilities of destroying the entire planet, a lot of the villains afterwards don't seem like that impressive. I mean, they have the ability to destroy Earth as well, but at this point, destroying Earth is something every villain can do in Dragon Ball Z, and even heroes on accident if they don't control their power. So the threat of destroying Earth just loses its luster after the Saiyan Saga. However, there is one villain in particular in the next video I'll talk about where, you know, his power obviously has, like, he's threatening in a whole different fashion. But other than that, because of this, we get a window door opening to Vegeta being alive, so we get the possibility of Vegeta, you know, reoccurring as a character, and I think that was a good call on Akira Toriyama's part, because Vegeta was probably the most iconic thing to come out of the Saiyan Saga. Him being a main villain as well as a reoccurring character definitely, like, shows that this saga did have something to salvage out of it. Goku dying really early in the series was also another con for me. Don't get me wrong, it was for a reason. It was so he can get stronger. But I gotta say, it was very odd to, like, you know, start a series off and then have the main character get killed so quickly. Other than that, there's not really much to say. The saga was good. But if I were to rate it, I'd unfortunately have to say out of the 4 sagas that I'm going to be doing, well, 5 sagas, excuse me, that I'm going to be doing a review of, this only makes it in, like, 3rd place. With the other 2, I'll reveal later, but this makes it in 3rd place in terms of which saga I would put it as a rate as. It's got some good fights, it's got some good moments, but unfortunately, Goku's the only one who serves any of the good moments. Gohan actually has some good moments in the training section, which most of the Saiyan Saga is devoted to, which is the training for the Saiyans, which takes up a nice gap of the episodes and leads to some nice development for each of the characters. Unfortunately, that development is completely plopped when a lot of the characters end up getting picked off within a span of like 2 to 3 episodes thanks to Nappa. It's just, there was a lot of build-up for this saga. Unfortunately, it kind of dwindles apart once the Cybermen and Nappa end up reducing the Z Warriors numbers from like 6 to 3. Literally, well, more like 7 to 3. Literally picking them in half, like more in half by each episode. So I gotta say, this saga definitely was hit and miss for me, with Gohan's training and Goku's fight versus Vegeta being the 2 top things to noteworthy here. Also, we get introduced to the transformation of Goku going Kaioken. At this point, Goku's able to learn a Kaioken technique which multiplies Goku's power based on how much he's willing to push his body, but the downside is that it hurts his body as well. We also get introduced to several other techniques: Gohan's Masenko technique, Piccolo's Makanko Po, aka the Special Beam Cannon, Tien's Shin Kikoho attack, Krillin's Destructo Disc, Vegeta's Gallic Gun, Nappa's Break Cannon, Raditz's Saturday Crush, Double Sunday, you know, all of these cool moves. And this is to a point where a lot of the moves that are iconic in the world of Dragon Ball Z make their appearance, because this is where the Z Warriors use a lot of the very iconic moves. So with that said, yeah, like that, we also all see Goku's trademark move, the Kamehameha, as well as Goku's primary move, which takes out a lot of movie villains, known as the Genki Dama, aka the Spirit Bomb, a move that takes time in order to gather up energy from the planet in order to make a giant ball capable of destroying the opponent, or a smaller ball that can destroy the opponent. So yeah, we learn a lot of cool attacks there, but other than that, not much to really salvage other than the fact of the Goku and Vegeta fight, as well as Gohan's development as a character. Gohan is the new character within the Z Warriors, and the way to introduce him is probably the best one I've seen out of the series, other than this other character I'm going to talk about later, but this half Saiyan has definitely made his mark in the series. So Yeah, it's just the Saiyan Saga has a few hidden misses, but it's definitely a very noteworthy saga. You need to watch it, obviously, to get the Dragon Ball series. So, with that said, it was good talking about the Saiyan Saga. And the next saga review, we will obviously be talking about the Frieza Saga. So, with that being said, I'll see you all then, everybody. Tyrone the God 3 out. Have a nice day, and take care.